Hey, what's up, man? Welcome to it. This is the Ace Michael Show. And you know, it's been a rough year, man. It's been a lot of stuff going on. We got to stay home, can't go to work, and you love to go to work. Remember when you go to work, you used to love it. But now you can't go to work. So a lot of people started their own things. A lot of people started bands again. A lot of people started carpentry business. A lot of people thinking back and doing the things that they used to do before they were unhappy, and now they're happy doing that. And I guess that's what the pandemic was all about, was getting us back to happy. Today, my guest on the show, Jenna, she is an artist, and she does what she wants to do for a living and makes money doing it and loves doing it. So you can't beat that. Let's learn from her. Welcome to the show, my first timer, Jenna. Welcome to the Ace Michael Show.
Hi, everyone. My name's Jenna CARLIE. Thanks for having me, Ace. How are you doing?
It is my pleasure to have you. I got your work sent to me, and I was very, very impressed. Now, let me say why, though. I was impressed because I will call it free expression, okay? Free expression is a term I just came up with that means to me, you're doing what you want to do. You're doing what you love. You know, like you can be a photographer and shoot headshots. You can be a filmmaker and make commercials and it pays your bills. But doing what you love, that's hard to come across.
Yeah, I mean, I think there also is something to be said, though, about people who do headshots and love it and produce commercials and love that. Yeah, my specific thing that I love in photography is making work on women and women's issues and trying to create a conversation and a dialogue through the art that can open up different topics or things maybe people haven't thought of, or just, create an open dialogue about oppression, trauma, healing, and what that can look like for different people.
Now, how do you do that, though? How do you open up a dialogue about oppression? Nobody wants to talk about that.
So a lot of my series are either about me sharing my own personal experience, or I interview other women about their experiences, and I create like a theme or a topic, and I have a specific guideline or questions that I ask them about their story, and then they're free to share what they want to share.
Interesting. So what made you get into that? Why would you choose that as your art? What made you say this is for me?
What made me say this is for me is my own personal background and history with trauma, and wanting to make a difference so that it doesn't, the specific things I have experienced in the world are things that I think can be changed over time, such as sexual assault and things like that. It takes a lot of work. It's very complicated. It's like a lot of systematic changes need to occur. But on a fundamental level, art can bring some of these topics to the foreground and give it more exposure. And I think a really important way to change things is to have open dialogue about them. So if I can create a platform where people can share their stories, it starts helping create that open dialogue.
So you had your own personal experiences, and you didn't do like a lot of us where you buried it and just kept it to yourself. You didn't want people to know about it. Something made you say it would be more cathartic for me to go ahead and share these experiences of my own and help people, even though that's like pulling a Band-Aid off, really.
Well, I did keep it a secret and a lot of my trauma secret for a very long time. It's very difficult to share experiences like this. So I think every time I make a body of work, I am in a way ripping that Band-Aid off over and over again, because not only am I looking to what I have pain and struggle with, I'm trying to make it relatable to others. I'm trying to make it creative. And then at the same time, I have to be ready to be critiqued by others and maybe put down or maybe lifted up. And I just have to be ready for whatever kind of opinions the art is going to bring out. But I have to remember that my ultimate goal is to start these conversations, whatever they are. And so, yeah, it is really hard to share my own personal experience, but where I'm at now in my healing, I am okay to be doing that. If I had been asked maybe 5 years ago, would you share your trauma with the world through your art? I would have said, no way, you
Right.
know?
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's just, it takes time. And just because someone doesn't want to share or they keep it private, that doesn't mean that's wrong either.
What's hard about what you do?
I think the hardest part is not me sharing my own experience. That is really hard. But the hardest part for me is hearing other suffering that women go through and then coming home and not being able to detach from that, sitting in this like reality that there is so much pain, there is so much suffering. And it's like, how can we alleviate this and help, like I do what I can with my art. I can't battle every issue, but it just makes you realize how much hurt is there is around you.
Yeah, and I'm interested to ask you this question. I mean, it's not really off topic. It's just kind of a weird question. It's just because I'm a weird person. But do you think back in the days of Theoditis, back then, that people were going through the same amount of trauma that they are and grief today that we do today? You get where I'm going with this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Has trauma changed? Have people changed? Has it always been the same thing?
I think things have changed and they've stayed the same in the sense that different like in different cultures there's different norms, and I think that can change what trauma looks like. So for example, in one culture it might be completely normal for a woman to walk around without her clothes on, and that's like the norm. And then there could be cultures where the woman is the one stereotypically in charge, and there are communities where it's like women are revered as the motherly goddesses. And so in American culture, it's primarily this patriarchy where men are in control. And so there's traumas related to that. So I really think it depends on the cultural norms that the person lives in, what's, and then also like how it's changed. How I understand it is contemporarily, because the world I'm in now is contemporary. And so I understand that a lot of things now with trauma can be exacerbated through social media, through like a lot of different things that we didn't have access to in the past. That doesn't mean historically speaking trauma wasn't hard or that they didn't experience the same amount of pain. I think people can experience the same amount of pains throughout any time period in history. I think it just changes, and what causes that pain changes over time and depending on what culture you live in.
Now, in your opinion, are men experiencing the same amount of trauma as women, or are women mostly going through trauma? Are men going through trauma and just not talking about it?
I think men go through trauma as well. I don't think it's a competition of who has more this or that, but statistically speaking, women do experience more sexual assault domestic assault, physical assault. And so just based on numbers, women do experience it more, but that is not to discredit that men also experience trauma.
Now, why do you think that is, that women experience more sexual assault, sexual harassment? Is it that men are the devil? I mean, there's got to be a reason that we conclude, why is that the problem?
I do not believe that the I do not believe that men are the devil. I believe that the devil is the patriarchy. The patriarchy is what creates a system that we feel like we have to live and abide by. It creates rules and structures that aren't healthy, and that trickles down. We learn it through parents, we learn it through media. It's like, what, just 20 years ago, being gay in the DSMV was a disorder. So
Mm,
it's like these are societal norms that are passed down and they only get changed with time. And
yeah.
so I don't think inherently you're born a devil or whatever. It's that society, as whatever those norms are taught to us, is what changes our perception of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And the patriarchy is what has made it so that women are viewed as less. And unfortunately, it's embedded in everyone to some degree. It's not just impacting men. It's like, for example, a friend the other day who's a female was watching a movie and said, I just keep noticing how old this woman is in this movie. And I'm like, the man is way older. And she's like, oh, well, I don't ever have to pay attention to the man's age. It's just if the
Right.
woman's old, like that's a problem. And I'm like, yeah, that's the patriarchy. We don't
Yes.
notice things unless we're taught to. We don't do things in a certain way unless we're taught to.
No, it's interesting. Wow, you got me going on three things at once, so I can only talk about one of them at a time. So let's since you mentioned movies, I'm kind of a pop culture type of guy. So for me, I look for the answers in life through things like Star Wars, Spider-Man, X-Men. So recently, I went to see a great film called Duel. Have you heard of this film, or have you seen it?
No, I have not.
The Last Duel. That's what it's called. The Last Duel. This is my brief movie review. It starts a duel between two men that have both slept with the same woman, and because they've slept with this woman, when she tells the story of rape, and this is back in the 13th century, 14th century in France, when she tells the story of rape, number one, no one believes her, including her husband. Number two, no one thinks that she has any rights to be in a courtroom fighting against this. Like, okay, you got raped. So what? You just got raped. Not a big deal, you know? And it's a very telling story about the powers that women have in society and the powers that women don't have in society. One of the things that I told my wife after we watched it was, I said, what's interesting about this film is that this woman doesn't win no matter who wins the duel, because that's why they fight. The duel is for her honor, but she doesn't win no matter who wins for her, because she's still going to be a woman in the 13th century, and she's still not going to have the rights. She still won't be able to do this and that, or this or that, or this or that. Well, I'm sure the filmmaker made that film with the point in mind to say, nothing's really changed. You can Me Too movement all day you want, but really, women don't get paid the same amount. Women don't get the same respect. And I would even go as far as to say that things that happen, had it been a man, we would spend more time and more news with that. Like, we spent so much time with D. Trump for years on little things that he did that really weren't newsworthy. And I'm not Democrat nor Republican, but I'm just saying it really wasn't news. We spent so much time worrying about that. Then recently, this girl came up missing. Alec Baldwin shot this lady. This lady's DNA was used by the government without her permission. Like, all of these stories last for 2 days, but a story about a man, oh, Johnny Midas can't tie his shoes. He's having trouble finding his other shoelace. This is news, people. You know what I'm saying? It's a very hard world for women of color, women of white, women of Indian, women of you name it. Women got a raw deal. What do you think?
I mean, that's true about people who are transgender, non-binary, anyone who falls outside of the norm. It's not just women. The issue is that until we all start looking at the patriarchy like it affects everyone, we won't be able to truly make an impact. Because, for example, let's say I try not to go out at night by myself because I'm worried about being raped. So that's me feeling like I'm not free. I'm not free as a woman in this world until I know I have complete ownership over my body, until I know I can go outside at night and know that nobody is going to touch my body unless I give them permission. And I'm safe to do as I please when I please. So the other component there is for men. If you have a wife or you have a daughter or you have a mother, if you worry about her safety, if you worry about her being raped, are you also truly free? If we have the same worries here, we can't just say it's a woman's issue. It's an everybody issue. And I think we need to start looking at it more holistically, and people need to step up and help out and not just be like, oh, well, I'm a man, so like this isn't my problem to deal with, but it is your problem to deal with. And it also does affect you. And it's, if there's lots of ways to have this conversation about these issues, and that's kind of, I'm just hitting one aspect of it through my art, even though there's 1,000 other ways to be having these conversations.
Just recently, maybe it was last week, there was a story about a woman in India, I believe, which is where a lot of gang rapes seem to happen. But in India, she was on a bus. I don't know if it was India or not. I don't know if you heard this story. This woman was raped in public, in broad daylight, on a bus, a full bus, traveling down the street, and no one said anything. No one, when questioned, no one knew anything, no one saw anything, no one knew nothing. So how is that possible? But that's not my question for you. My question is, what goes through your mind when you hear stories like that? When you hear a story of a woman in a bar and everybody's in the bar and she gets raped, she gets marginalized in such a way. As a woman, what do you think? Because I have a thought when I hear a crime about a black man and they say yes, and the suspect is black, I go, oh snap! Why you gotta be black? You know, then that just makes it even worse. That's what I think. So when you hear these things from a woman's perspective, what do you think when you hear stories that are horrific like that?
Wait, what do you mean it makes it even worse that he's black?
Well, for me, being a black man, I encounter racism every day on some level, and I've just gotten used to it. The problem is that the stereotype of black men goes to say that we are rapists, we are drug dealers, we are criminals, and so I hate when something backs up that stereotype. I hate to see negative reports on Will Smith's private life because it leads back to saying, what are you saying, that black men can't have raised healthy families because Will Smith can't? You get what I'm saying? And that's just my default. That's me as a black person. But you as a woman, I mean, do you have a default when you hear something like that? You hear, I mean, there's some horrific stories.
I mean, I think in marginalized communities, for example, you're in a black community that's marginalized. I'm in a female community, females are marginalized. I think that it's incredibly difficult to live in a marginalized space. And I think for me, I'm always hyper aware of it. I'm always, oh, wow, that was misogynistic. Oh, wow, that was rude. Oh, yeah, you wouldn't have said that to a man. And then when you hear additional stories, it's like you're already exhausted. You're already fighting this stuff all the time. And then you hear horrific things, and you just, for me personally, I either cry about it, like I go home and I'm like, wow. And I sit there and I just cry for that person, for our society. And then at the same time, I sometimes get extremely angry. And that anger, most of the time I get angry. So first it's sadness, then I get angry. And that anger is what fuels me to make the work, because I hear things and I'm like, that is so fucking, I can't even imagine.
Yeah,
And I just
yeah.
freak out. And then I'm like, how do I channel this anger? And then that's when I make the art.
And we will talk about the art, believe it or not. but I got to ask you one more thing. Now, me personally, this is my own thing. I haven't started this campaign yet. I've thought about it several times. I hate to see RAPE depicted on film. It's to me, it's one of the worst things a human can do, period. And there's no reason it needs to be in any type of quality theater production. Like if you are making a movie and you see Sally goes into the room and the lights go dark, we know what happened. We don't need to see it. We get it, right? And so when I see those scenes in movies, I'm torn apart, and I don't like to see those scenes in movies. So I've thought about starting a campaign to abolish those scenes, make it illegal to show those scenes, because that gratuitous depiction is not helping. What are your thoughts on that?
So, this is a very complicated question, and I've had a lot of debates with people about it. But I believe that when rape scenes are used to romanticize rape, to encourage rape, it should absolutely not be acceptable. But there are spaces where it can be used in a way that makes people uncomfortable, like for you, for example, but in a good way where it's like, wow, whoa, I haven't had such a like disheartening feeling, or I haven't understood it from this perspective before, or like it really resonates with people in a different way where they can sit there and cry or get angry and be like, wow, I can try to understand this now because I see this depiction, and sometimes that awakens things inside of people who don't have experience with it, and maybe it propels them to change things or to start conversations about it. So I do think if it's used to romanticize, or if it's any way that's objectifying a woman that is not for the betterment of like changing rape culture, absolutely it shouldn't be in there. But there's definitely times or documentaries that I think it has power to have it, unfortunately, because it's not an issue that we can just like close our eyes and turn away and act like it doesn't exist. It exists. And media does perpetuate rape culture, but there is a way that media can make this stuff without perpetuating it and actually fighting it. But that's a
And now,
very narrow line to walk.
and now that calls to the work. Because you work with sensitive topics and sensitive issues, is there ever a time when you are creating a piece of work that you feel personally, this doesn't belong in my professional life work? Like this may be something that I'm passionate about, but I don't necessarily need to incite other people to be passionate about it, nor do people need to know that that's how I feel about it personally
Can
in
you
my
give me an
art.
example?
Did you
Will
say,
you give
can I
me
give you an example?
yeah.
Okay, yeah, here's an example. We're not going to talk about RAP anymore. Let's say the example is Black Lives Matter. And you personally believe Black lives do matter, trans lives matter, trans lives freaking matter, man. And so you start this piece of work, and in the middle of it, you think, yeah, but there's a lot of people that will feel differently. Where do I self censor and say how much of this is artwork and how much of this is me making a personal political statement or social statement? Or is all your work your personal social statement? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think it's a personal social statement. That's why I interview other people. It's a collective statement, and it's not even a statement, it's a collective experience. It's saying, hey, here's this topic. For example, the experience of non binary people or individuals, the experience of people who have been raped. What is that experience like? Because it's going to be different for everybody. And why don't we get to hear more of these stories? Why aren't there platforms for this? So I just want to create a platform for those stories to be shared. And everyone's is going to be different. And that's the beauty in being able to talk to as many people as you can, and then being able to disseminate this information through art. So it's almost never just my own personal opinion, because even if I do have experience with something, for example, yes, I've been raped, but that doesn't mean that I can then speak to everyone who has that experience. That's ignorant, you know? So I try not to ever just fixate on my own opinions, and I try to share everyone's.
Do you think that in the instance of like Dave Chappelle just had this Netflix series, And by the time this is aired, it probably will all be worked out. Who knows how it's gonna work out in the end. But Dave Chappelle said some very incendiary things about personal experiences that he had with transgender individual. And because he had his personal experience, no different from George Carlin or Richard Pryor or Robin Williams or any of these satirical style comedians who push the edge, right? He said what he said. Instantly, people said this special needs to be taken off the air. Netflix is responsible for generating this filthy dialogue. They need to blah, 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 blah. And then the president of Netflix came on and said, you know what? We made a mistake. We shouldn't have put this out there, blah, 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 blah. I'm leading to the question that how much care and attention should an artist have to pay to what society feels about their work?
None. Because the point of making art is not fixating on the outcome. If you get caught up on what society is going to think or feel or react to your art, you'll live in a bubble and you'll never make art. Yes, if you put something out that's racist and homophobic, you better be ready for whatever's going to come. But like, if that's your opinion and that's how you feel and that's what you make art about, like, that's what you make it about, and that's your life, and people are going to react to you how they react to you. So either you choose to make that art or not and deal with the repercussions as they may be. But this is really more getting into also topics of censorship, like what bigger broadcast networks and things like Netflix should be censoring these things out that encourage racism or encourage all this type of rape culture. That's a whole different ballpark. But when it comes to like an artist making work, I think there's a few different types of artists. There's responsible artists, there's artists who work on social issues. And for me, I always think about the outcome, but sometimes that's stifling. And I have to remind myself that, like, the outcome isn't what I really need to be paying attention to. What I need to be paying attention to is what my work is about and about the change I'm trying to create with it. And I think everybody's opinion, whether I may disagree with them, like I disagree with people who are homophobic. That's not my opinion. But does that mean that like those people should be censored? Maybe, but also does that mean then I should be censored too? Like censorship is really, really complicated. If you start censoring one thing that you disagree with, then it's the rights to censor yourself as well. And I think as much as I don't want to hear about homophobic people and their art, okay, I'm not going to engage in that. I don't want it to have a place in this world, but unfortunately it does. So I, as the like viewer, have to decide I'm going to go support queer communities and I'm going to go support queer artists. I'm not going to go support homophobic artists. So a lot of it is in the hands of the viewer, and then a lot of it is in the hands of the people who are mass media, who choose what gets out there. Like, instead of putting out people who are making homophobic statements, they should put out people who are putting out statements that encourage queerness and LGBTQ plus, you know? It's so I think the responsibility being on the artist is far less of an issue than these people who are at the very top and make the decisions. That's really where the filters need to occur.
Well, I delight in the fact that you said at the beginning of the show that, 20 years ago, you might see a movie where it was okay to slap a woman. A man would just say, "Shut up, Sally, that's enough out of you." And we just accepted that. We also accepted that 20 years ago, damn near any character in a film or a television show that was perceived as gay, well, that was the butt of the joke. Jack Tripper on Three's Company. Well, he's gay. Ah, he's gay. Okay. But we see things differently now. So I only have time for two more questions. Two questions
Okay.
I think are very important. So the one question being, while we're on the topic of transgenderification and gay and your thoughts on and blah, blah, blah. when a film company approaches an artist that's written a script or that has directed a film, they say, we're going to make this a revisionist film. We're going to revise this. And so the male lead might be gay now. He's got a lesbian best friend now. And the guy character that used to be white will be black now. And we've revised it. We've totally told a new story because we've changed these characters. So here's my question. Do you see that happening in cinema a lot yourself? And what are your feelings on it if you do?
So, as someone who identifies as gay, I'm happy to a degree that this happens, that they're introducing more gay individuals into media. But at the same time, I also understand it's like robbing an artist of their original content. But in a way, it's like it's a really complicated answer because it's the artist's decision. Are you going to sell your script, give them the rights because you know that they have the rights to change it? But also artists need to make money. So it's like, okay, I
Yeah.
have blood, sweat,
Amen to that. Amen.
I have blood, sweat, and tears over this. They're gonna maybe change it. It's my baby. I don't want them to, but I also need to eat a sandwich and pay my rent. So um all these questions you ask are really great, but are so complicated and have so many different answers. And I don't want to leave out any perspective. And it's so funny because this is like my art brain is that I'm like, okay, this is how I feel. Oh, but it could be this. Oh, I need to get this perspective. I need to talk to this person. And then I need like 100 million different perspectives before I feel like I can even put the art out into the world. And I think I forgot what your original question was. Oh, it was about cinema. I can't personally like comment on that because I'm not in cinema. So I don't know what that experience is.
But let's say that you created a piece of work, and you will if you haven't already. You created a piece of work, and this is real life stuff. This is Hearst Publication owns 75 different magazines. And your work, they want to put on the cover of all of their LGBTQ magazine because they know it's going to drive subscriptions. They know it's going to drive advertisers. You know in your heart that that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing with these films. They're only saying we need to make Superman gay because we now know that there's a market out there of kids who might go see a Superman movie if he was gay. And we only really want to sell tickets. We're not trying to say Superman should be gay. We don't care. We just want to make money. Right?
Yeah.
So if approached by someone who gave you the bajillion zillion dollars for a piece of your work, would you stop them and say, whoa, 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 whoa. My work is not to be used as a this or as a that. You know, this is me speaking, like Dave Chappelle. He was doing a comedy skit, you know, for all we know. He didn't have an agenda for all we know, but they took the bits and pieces from that and they said, oh, see, he's saying this. Well, I remember the special before that. He said a lot of things about Black people, and we didn't take that out of context. And I remember the special about that. He said some other things that we didn't take out of context. But now all of a sudden, it seems like gay has become a thing that's popular, and you find a lot of people doing, let's put a gay character here, let's put this, let's make this be Captain America needs to be a woman, and then the new Thor needs to be a woman, and blah, 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 so that we can show that we are giving everybody an opportunity here, which is not the case. You're still not giving everybody an opportunity. You're just making it look like you are.
So I think that is a real issue. It's disingenuous and disheartening when companies just hire someone who's in the demographic they need so they can look like they are meeting a diversity quota, or movies doing that. If they don't care, that is fucking hella disheartening. But guess what? They're changing it anyway because these people, these young children, are now growing up seeing somebody who identifies like them, and they're seeing, oh, well, maybe I don't need to hide this. Maybe I'm not the only one who feels this way. Maybe I can be my own superhero. Like, this person's not shunned from it. They're embraced. Look, they're a Hollywood superstar. I think what's more damaging is growing up and not seeing anyone like you in media and thinking, well, I must really be fucked up. I must really be an outcast because there's nobody like me that I'm seeing. And so, as disingenuous as they are being, I do think it is changing things because, yeah, right now it's not equal by any means. Like, none of us are fooled, but putting that kind of stuff in mass media is helping.
I totally agree with what you just said. I wish that I could record it. No, wait, we did. Okay, good. Hey, I got time for one last question. And remember, I said I had two, and this is the one that I really wanted to get to. And maybe think about it before you answer. But every artist has a favorite piece of art that they've done, no matter what they say. We don't love all our children the same exact way. So, what is your favorite piece of artwork that you created, and why?
Okay, that's like asking someone what their favorite type of food is. I think it just depends on the period of your life or what you're going through. I think it constantly evolves. Sometimes my favorite work is a poem I wrote that morning on my windshield that is foggy and you can like see my finger and then it evaporates. Sometimes it's something I labored over for 40 hours.
Mm.
Sometimes it's somebody else's story that I made a piece on. It's really there honestly isn't one. Like my favorite photo I ever took used to be on my wall for like 6 years and then one day I'm like, "Oh, I don't like that anymore." And I replaced it with something else that was
That
my
just
favorite.
proves you're fickle. That doesn't.
I don't think that proves I'm fickle. I think it proves that I'm evolving. What I liked before, for example, it was like a beautiful sunset picture. And then as I became a more evolved artist in the sense of what I want to work on, which is women's issues, I was like, you know what should go on that wall? This badass picture I took of this badass woman with a sunset behind her, you know?
That's what's up. That's what's up. Jenna, thank you so much for being a guest on my show. Listen, you guys, Jenna's information is at the bottom of the screen. Make sure you share, like, support, do the thing that you do with social media. She's a great artist. She's got a fabulous future ahead of her. Jenna, thank you so much for being my guest on the Ace Michaels show. And you guys
Thank
know
you
what
so
I
much
say.
for having me. I appreciate it. I don't
Oh,
know if my dog interrupted that, but it's Jenna Carlie and my Instagram is Jenna.Carlie.
and that is what's up. You know what I say at the end of the show? I still mean it. Live the life you love the life you live. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Ace.
So, hey, Jenna.
Yep.
So we will have at the bottom of the screen your links to your pages and whatnot.
Okay.
And Carrie Ann sent me a link to your bio with some photos. But if you can send us over, I would say about 20 different ones. We always make a slideshow during the episode that will run while, just give people like the 360 of who you are,
Okay.
And this episode will be out on Sunday. If you get us the pictures right away. We do always new episode Wednesday, broadcast Sunday.
So Carrie has all the images, but I will tell her if she needs more to let me know. Yeah.
Please. And thank you so much for being my guest. I appreciate it talking to you. I hope you'll come back and do the show again. Don't be
Of
no
course.
stranger.
You're a great interviewer. Thank you.
Have a great night. Thank you so much.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Beep.